hero.
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Welcoming you in. It is kickoff week. It is time for us to lead off what is going to be the final less than 7 days as of today, shows and such to get you in to a first week of UFL action on this Saturday. I am Zach Heilman bringing you in. It is Around the UFL, the show that brings you everything that is going on, happening, and is being talked about in the United Football League, and going to be introducing you, of course, into our great cast of PFN personalities and analysts coming on in for this lead-up show, because, hey, it's a big deal, guys. We got the rosters all finalized. We will be discussing every roster to a degree down the line today. Got other news pieces coming up that are nice final finishing touches to this first week of UFL action that we'll be discussing as well. But before that, got to intro everybody who is in the show right now. A bit of a Brady Bunch setup with the four squares today. So I'm going to be going top and then down to the bottom row in a Z. First thing is, of course, the man himself on the right side. It is my co-host on the UFO podcast, the ref himself. How are you doing, man? Going to just tee you up straight away for that spring stock promo, because that's basically what's coming up at the end of the week.
Well, you know, it's a good one. It's a good week. It's a great week. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, it might be the best week ever, because we are just a few short days away from spring stock 3. If you're down in Arlington, March 30th, come and join us. You're down in Houston, throw the swing is on the car and come and join us. 2-day event. 9 a.m. Central, day 1. We're going live, baby, and we're going live on YouTube and in person. So if you're out there, come and join us. But if you can't make it, we get it. Come and join us over on YouTube, which is why you need to be subscribed. Click the bell. It builds morale, and it also lets you know when we're going live, just like Spring Stock Flippin' 3. 3 years in the making, spanning 3 leagues. Things are coming full circle, baby. We're going to have fun, Zach. I'm telling you, things are coming in. Knock on wood. This has been the Monday of all Mondays. Last Monday, I won't repeat, but I was not in the greatest mindset when it came to work. This has been the day where
Yep.
all the things are coming together, which is what I was hoping, because you arrive Thursday night, and my goal has been to have all of these things ironed out so we can just enjoy ourselves. And boy, oh boy, are we going to do that. I know people hate when we do it, but I'm going to do it. We're stopping at Buc-ee's. We're getting barbecue. We're getting brisket. We're charging the Tesla. We're staying at the Hojo. Then we're going to the IFL and then Spring Stock 3. And then we get to do it all again the next day for Spring Stock Day Part 2 in Houston, Rice Stadium. Join us bright and early. I think the game starts at 2 p.m. Central. I'll have to double check that. But we're getting there bright and early. We're going to have a TV for the early game so you won't have to worry about missing it. And we're going to be having fun. I'm going to be getting hot dogs, Zach, at minimum. At minimum hot dogs. We might get more.
Hot dogs? Okay.
Well, we might get burgers. We might get more. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Well, I'm not. I gave you the tee up for a promo, and I'm, as always, not disappointed. And it's better than what I expected. So good job.
Oh, good.
Great stuff. We're gonna be hyping this like crazy this week, as you guys know. And yes, the IFL Frisco Fighters taking on Duke City that Friday before we do the kickoff. So
who are you rooting for?
Real quick, it's gonna be Frisco, but that's we'll add on to that later on, because we're gonna have a edition of UFL podcast before. If we can get this figured out, possibly. Stay tuned for those. That is fluid, by the way. Moving on down the line, Jake. Hey, look, let's take back this show a little bit. We hear a lot of rough them up, all in. We're outnumbering people today. Let's hunt, okay? We got a big week coming up. St. Louis is coming into the building. It's gonna be look, I'm bracing for impact, but at the same point, my optimism, this is beginning of season optimism. I got to start with a high before I hit any possible low. How you feeling, man? We'll get into the rosters a bit more, but how you feeling right now?
I feel like our team is going to help me out and not make me look like a complete fool on Twitter by chalking a lot of trash to St. Louis. So feeling pretty good. I feel like they're gonna back me up.
I agree, because Twitter doesn't exist anymore, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, X, I can't guarantee you that they'll do the same for you, buddy. I hate to say it.
It'll
Ref's
never
law.
be X.
Elon can say what he wants. It's always Twitter. It's always going to be
Always
Twitter.
Twitter.
Always Twitter. Bonus points to the Panthers social team for putting out the trash can Battlehawks logo. That was S tier social media. Good way to drum things up. Ironic, because St. Louis used to be my favorite fan base, and now backseat because Michigan. So that's okay. We'll be fine with that. Stay strong. We'll talk more about the roster and how good that is momentarily, man. And we'll go and finish up with the man that has no affiliation. He is the Switzerland. He is Mr. Switzerland. He is James Larson. He is Mr. Adam Schefter, the UFL. How are you hanging in there, man? This is the type of year for you, the writing team in particular. You're one of your pride and joys on PFN. It is it's churning. The machine is pumping at full RPMs right now.
Yeah, it's obviously very hectic right now, getting a lot of content out. If you guys aren't already looking at the pfnewsroom.com website, you definitely should do that. We've already got full roster breakdowns out for a few teams and more on the way. That'll be done within the next couple of days. So yeah, if you want anything UFL related, you got to go to pfnewsroom.com.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, you're my boss this week. I gotta get you a write up on Houston and Memphis. Totally not going to be biased to Memphis or anything, and not have the ref come at me.
I'm going to edit it
when I'm down there, being like, "Hey,
it's all right, Zach, send it to me. We'll be good. I'll get it up. Ref won't even know."
did you not put all in the article? James, did he not edit it?
What do you mean it doesn't say 12-0?
No, I'm going to skew it towards Bill Alexander's vintage varsity crew.
I can't be mad at that.
I mean, no, I won't. By the way, proud partners of Spring Stock, mind you, and one of our great partners here with the PFN shows as the like. Gents, it's time to dive in. Intros are done. We've been pumping people up to this moment for kicking off the week, as we did yesterday, especially with some of our tweets put out from PFN socials yesterday. But now rosters are set. We knew this was coming. Last ATU, we let all you guys who tuned in know. Be ready for this. And, well, some of the cuts, final roster-wise, they were shocking. Varied per team, but some of them were ones, much like how it's been through this whole process, that I've been shocked. And people have said, so you could probably build a whole nother team with some of the people that are out and about. Initial thoughts overall in the process. We're going to go team by team. I got Birmingham, by the way, guys who are BHAM fans. We're pinning them up and starting that first. But initial thoughts on this whole thing, guys. Just getting that final round over with.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this one was coming. Like, we've talked about the last couple of weeks. The cutting down from 75 to 58 was difficult as it was. But the coaches, just speaking to them over the last week or so, they really talked about how this round was even more difficult than the last, because you're looking at the top 58 guys on each team now. And I think it was Coach DiFilippo who said, he had a really good team in New Orleans last year, but the 8 guys that he cut, to get down to 50, those guys would have been starters on his team on the Breakers last year. So it just goes to show the amount of talent that the league has and has had on their rosters. And hopefully, as this thing continues to grow, we'll see this talent come back.
Yeah. Tell you, like I said, it's the whole process has been similar to what you're saying. Just, it's amazing how tough it is. And again, 2 leagues, you're combining that, what has been incredible rosters, I feel, for both leagues last year. It's hard. I mean, like I said, I'm trying to reserve my thoughts. I'm not going to I'm pulling a bit of the more fandom card and reeling it back. Cause like I said, you and I, Jake, I mean, there's at least 1 to 2 of those on the last 8 where I'm like, man, we're going to be talking about that. And it's for everyone who's a fan of this league, and especially in the chat, you're all going to see these cuts and you're going to look week 1 and be like, hey, this week 1 roster better be the best of the best. That's what you hope your coaches do well. It's what they are paid for. And if they come out sluggish and someone was not accounted for and could have added on to that, that's what we talk about a lot of this too. It's a lot of debate. Was it the right call? We'll see. We'll see very soon.
Right.
And I think that's a good way to tie things in, is we can jump in to Birmingham first thing off. And I think how I'm going to do this, I'm just going to list off the 8 players that were cut on this final round, since it's a little shorter here. And then we'll just kind of go around the horn, give our thoughts on anyone that maybe sticks out, and thoughts on what we see position-wise, And some moves have not been listed on here as well. Keep in mind, some guys jump off before these cuts too. So, noted. But first thing, Birmingham, 8 men down. Here we go. Bubba Bolden, safety, is down. Slade Bolden was also cut. Cole Cabral, center. O'Shea Dugas, offensive line, he's out. Malik Hall, outside linebacker. Myron Mitchell, which was one that stuck out to me, along with Bolden, by the way, who's gone as well. Chauncey Rivers, defensive end, and Henri St. Amour from Georgia Tech, defensive end. He is gone too. Initial thoughts on this. Mitchell and Bolden, I will say, just to kick off the combo, those are 2 of the bigger names that really stand out. And for Mitchell's sake, and Bolden, I guess, for that matter, 2 very competitive portions of rosters when you're doing training camps to go right out the bat.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to be tough competition in Birmingham. Right, you're coming into a team. Some of these guys coming into a team, back-to-back championships, all the while consolidating 2 leagues into one. So essentially 8 teams into 8 more teams. We knew these cuts were going to be difficult, and I mean, I don't think any of us were going to look at any of these lists and not be surprised by a couple names. But at the end of the day, I won't say this for every coach in the league. There's few coaches in the league that I have confidence in, but one of them is Skip Holtz, right? And so when, at least coming down to the question of, are the fans going to look at the roster come week 1 and say, is this the best of the best? I think with the Stallions case, I think more than likely. That's not to say that some of these guys aren't as competitive as some of the guys on the team. I'm just talking about the overall result that I expect to see, and just the team, just based on what we've seen Holtz and Potter put together in the past. They really seem to find these guys that aren't just good players, but are good teammates. And when it comes to spring ball, that goes a long way. But I mean, I feel like I could copy and paste that same response for like 4 teams, maybe not all 8, but at least 4 teams. I could say, look, what their head coach is doing I'm believing it. I'll probably say this, just to kind of give a spoiler alert, DC. I know everyone was expecting me to say Houston, but that's another one, so get over it. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the Stallions. I wouldn't be too worried if I was a Stallions fan until you get to week 3 and you're like 0-3. Then I'd worry. Then I'd be like, pump the brakes. What's going on here? But we'll have to see.
Yeah, to kind of piggytail off that, you look at Birmingham and the roster that they constructed And I got to shout out Thorne, who just does so much work. Nicholas Thorne, the roster guru, the roster genius. The Birmingham Stallions right now, they have 16 former NFL draft picks on their roster. That's 16 of 50 guys. That's a pretty high percentage in a spring league. And we're not talking about guys that signed to the NFL at some point as an undrafted free agent. We're talking about guys that were taken in the NFL draft over the last several years. That's some real talent there. Looking at these cuts, though, it's tough. The one that really stuck out to me was Henri Saint-Amour. That's a guy that was so good with the Breakers last year, 31 tackles and 6 sacks. He was a big pick for them in the dispersal draft. I really thought that he would have a roster spot, and honestly, I think he did up until when Birmingham made the addition of Taco Charlton. Taco joined training camp so late, but I think he impressed. That's a guy who was a former first-round pick with the Dallas Cowboys. That's a guy, so much potential there. Here's the interesting thing for me is, Charlton has really struggled with injuries as of late. If he's not healthy and if he goes down, I would see them bringing Henri back in pretty quickly. I think Saint-Amour definitely deserves a roster spot, but obviously Taco's a huge name for them, a big pickup over the last week. Like you mentioned, Slade Bolden, that one really is a shame because that Slade would bring in some Alabama fans to those games as well. Yeah. And obviously this is a business and you got to keep the best guys. But at the same time, it's like, man, guys like Slade, Bo Scarborough just retired as well. So it's like, it's too bad we're not seeing these Alabama stars on the team this year.
Real talk. Yeah. Jake, I want to tee this up, and I think this is a good way of talking this, and mainly because James brought it up. With cuts, the one thing that even is a silver lining, and we talk about this a lot with the cut downs, even in the NFL, you still want to be ready to go because that means your name, it's almost like employment. You put in resume, you kind of can pull the resume if you want, if say you are looking at and need something filled, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And for Birmingham, that's one thing Zach Potter and the company, they do really well is, that personnel department always has their finger on the roster that past or present, and they're ready to go to fill when needed. It's we saw that last year in particular, that they can just kind of just flip a roster on a dime and get it competitive if pieces fall away.
Am I supposed to have an opinion on that? Because
I was just,
out here.
You know what? This is, I'll break the ice here. I decided to drink because I saw you pour a whiskey. There's no curtains on any of the PFN shows.
I've taken sips, so this has not hit me yet. So
I don't know. It doesn't seem like sips to me. If we're live, so press 1 in the chat if you think it was sips and 2 in the chats if you think it was gulps. Because I don't know. It might be gulps. It might be. Anyway, what was the question, Zach? I didn't hear it either.
I was just teeing up on the possible.
I was expecting a question, and I'm sorry. Wait. Where's the question? Where's the question mark?
No question. I'm just teeing you up on thoughts and just how that point can be about. You're no matter what, even if you're cut, you still have a potential to get back. That was what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You make a mark. Obviously, injuries are going to happen. You hate to see it. You'd never want to see it, but. Like James was saying, with Taco having, injury history, yeah, you're going to get hurt. You're going to be able to come back. And a lot of these guys, clearly we're going to be starters in any other edition of this league, So, yeah, I'm going to take another gulp.
There you go. Make it threes in the chat.
To talking about Michigan's cuts.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
I have a lot of words to say on those, but I know we weren't getting there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it's surprising. But no, like Griff was saying, or Zach was saying. All right, I'm done. Cut me off. This is not my day. My day. Oh.
You just you reset, you regroup, you get things going.
Come back around when my brain wants to.
I will say final thing on some of the cuts, in particular the ones that shocked me. Just looking at the group. So first thing off, Taco Charlton. Me and the ref, you talked on UFL podcast in terms of the Tim Ward claim in terms of pickup later on. SA, when we talk about their cuts, he'll be brought up. But when you see like signings this late, or guys like a Taco Charlton come in late, Zaquandre White come in late. A lot of times my thought instantly goes to either two scenarios. A, he's come in, you want to get a guy that's a real quick look. Maybe it's someone that you can fill in fill in a better position at the depth, or you believe this person was available all of a sudden and is a good pickup. And then, it kind of solidifies position, maybe had a little more questions on, is how I view the Charlton piece. Same, I think, goes for receiver in terms of we're looking at this lineup. So we know, for example, Victor Bolden, it's a shame he will not be in this league anymore. That's one that's gone for the Birmingham Stallions. They did pick up Isaiah Zuber, though. And that's one you talk like Charlton. I wonder if Zuber, you add on with Benjamin Victor, Gary Jennings, Kevin Austin, Kane seems like the number one, but I wonder if Zuber, given his past track record as being a kind of a 1A, 1B in Houston back in 2022, helps him when he joined up, and it kind of made things a little more competitive for, say, Myron. Receivers already competitive, of course, but James, you know what I mean? Zuber, I feel with the experience, it kind of helps solidify a few things at that position that maybe they needed for two guys that can just kind of day one go out and get it.
Yeah, and Zuber is so versatile because we've seen him play DB. We saw him go to the Raiders and play some corner there in the preseason. He's also been utilized as a returner, which he did that for the Gamblers last year. So, yeah, he's a guy that I think fills multiple roles. And with his experience, what he's done with Houston, people forget that first season he had over 300 receiving yards. He really was a standout guy. And had Houston had more stability at the quarterback position, he probably would have gotten more attention. But he had a great year, and I think he's a solid addition. Obviously, Zach Potter, he knows what he's doing. So more NFL caliber talent on the roster, you can't complain.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, gents, moving on down the line here. Second roster now, Jake. This is where we can really get into our nitty-gritty. It is Michigan, as we're going to see what Mike Nolan and company have been taking. And I'll say right off the bat, the first one on the cut list, there's two of them that really stick out. Gerard Fernandez, I was really thinking I didn't expect to see that name come up. Same for Nasir Player, by the way. But, here we are. Others that were cut on the second round are Vontrell McMillan, defensive end, Tennessee Chattanooga, Jamal Millen, defensive tackle from Illinois, Samson Nakua, who has been highly put on social media for his, of course, being related to Puka Nakua. I don't know, kind of just shocked me given the attention, but social media does not mean roster moves. Just remember that. Also, Gene Pryor, tackle from Hawaii, Toa Tua from Nevada, running back, and Alex Thomas, cornerback from Ferris State, all were cut as well. But recycling here, Jake, thoughts on this? I'll hold mine off for the two that I just mentioned leading in, but I mean, two big names kind of leaving for Michigan in this final round.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we were going to keep more than just 12 guys between the two dispersal drafts, but out of the 26 guys we picked up, only 12 remain. So yeah, like a couple of surprises there. Like you said, Gerard Fernandez, Player, and Thomas was the third for me. Knowing that Nakua got cut last year from the Maulers after a week or two, I kind of figured that he had more of an outside shot. I was hoping that we'd be able to keep him for name recognition and all that. Him, having brothers both on the team, Kai on defense, Samson on offense, but clearly, like you said, got to stick with your best 50. So makes sense. So I'm not as surprised there. The other names, yeah, I kind of figured were going to be kind of the guys that we see. So the names that were shocking the ones, but other than that, kind of chalk for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I'll tell you what, it's a tough process. Michigan, though, I mean, it's still a competitive group. I mean, for linebacker, if I'm talking for Fernandez, Noah Dawkins is no slouch in that position as well. Same for, the likes of Sean White, Javin White. And, as we're going to be talking throughout this process for cuts, every cut also has different implications or people's scenarios play into this, as we'll talk later, say, in Houston for one particular cut. That was big on that list. Otherwise, for defensive wise, I think with a lot of Michigan's cuts, we're talking competitive defense in terms of this is Mike Nolan's bread and butter, So you look at the roster structure right now, and that's kind of what we're seeing. It's a lot more even depth across all positions. I was actually kind of amazed at the uniformity at all the depth spots. And we're talking receiver, slot receiver, and tight end. Whereas like some people like Birmingham, for example, they lean heavily on a lot more of the cornerback and safety positions, but then maybe you're like loose in different areas. It felt like at least how the roster's constructed with Michigan, and I'll lean in whoever wants to take this, kind of feels like they for Mike and company want to have like equal parts everywhere is what I'm getting, rather than being specialized and leaning on something that they want to have crazy depth, but they feel like they're secure in a spot. It's almost like they just want to have distribution of each piece on that roster.
So let me just jump in, because I know I went on a little bit of a tirade when I was talking about the Stallions and Skip Holtz and Zach Potter and having the confidence that whatever changes they make is still going to result in the best possible team. And I said I could probably say the same thing for about 4 of the 8 teams. The Michigan Panthers are not one of them. And that's not to say that these are the right cuts, the wrong cuts, but when it comes to them playing on the field, this is one of the things I'm actually happy that the Roughnecks are in the USFL division, because that's 2 wins for me right off the bat right there. Ref's law. I mean, right away. Now, we'll see what happens week 1, but I feel like even though, they didn't get in the playoffs last year, the Battlehawks, they just have they're like God's team right now. Ref's law. That gives me 1-0. So right now we've already calculated 3 of the 12 wins. Now let's just imagine a world that maybe somehow you stumble after the wins that we have. You get into the playoffs. Boom. 4-0. We've already calculated a quarter of our wins this season on this conversation alone.
I feel like
ref's math.
Did you just jump? I'm sorry. I'm going to just pause this here. This feels like you jumped into like a filibuster and completely just moved it away. Give me that.
That was great insight on the Panthers cuts.
Give me that.
Really.
Well, I'm just saying, had they made better, had they built a better roster, had they, no, let me explain. Had they built a better roster, I wouldn't guarantee my team 2 of those victories right now, right here. Receipt, clip it. 3 if you get to the playoffs.
I'll jump in, Zach, quick on a couple of these moves.
Please.
Like Gerard Fernandez is a guy that was surprising to see him get cut. But the note on him for me is he is getting older. And in a league where you do have a lot of younger talent coming in, a lot of guys coming off of NFL practice squads, that could have been an area of concern there, where you do have some younger guys now at the linebacker position in Michigan. Fernandez, he's a veteran. He's a proven veteran. And I could see him getting picked up by another team, or maybe getting brought back during the season like we've talked about if there's some struggles there. But I could see his age potentially playing a factor in that one. Yeah. Alex Thomas is a guy that I really thought would have made the roster. He had some really good moments with the Breakers last year. And actually, according to PFF, he had the top 2, not necessarily top 2, but he was second in the league in allowing only a 53 QB rating when thrown his way. So him, and I can't remember who in the world was first. I don't remember, but he was second in that category. So he's a guy that I think definitely has potential, could get picked up somewhere else. Toa, the running back Toa, I feel like that one's not as much of a surprise, because you've got Wes Hills there, you've got Matt Colburn there. They also picked up Nate McCrary. Toa always felt like the odd man out in that backfield, so that move isn't too surprising in my opinion. Nasir Player is the guy that I really thought would have been a lot. Out of these 8 players, Nasir Player, that is his last name, by the way.
Yes.
He's the guy that I really thought would have been the lock. He was so good with Jaron Horton's defense last year. He started in all 10 games. He had, I think, 28 tackles, a few sacks, forced a couple key fumbles throughout the year. He's the guy that makes any defensive line better. So that one's surprising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a bit. That one stuck. So those stuck out for me. And credit, like I said, it's Mike Nolan being defensive minded. It was going to be under a little bit more scrutiny on that side anyway. And clearly that is shown. But some of these guys, like I said, those 2 in particular, Alex Thomas being another. Those are people where I'm like, hey, look for those names, and several others. Look for these names to come and be someone if you need to plug them in, or they are going to be picked up later. Like say a Tranning Stribling who sat on the free agent market for a bit. They shouldn't be sitting there too long if they have any opening to come in and do some damage, because Fernandez, of course, being that type of guy he was, and Player and company, I'm shocked. Jake, I want to get your thoughts on this really quick, because to me, I feel like the roster for Michigan is very light on receiver, and I'm not liking how light it is at the position. And that's saying something, given that receivers generally are, it's a pretty, you get some decent depth of receiver and cornerback. I feel like 6 is like a little too light at that department.
Yeah, especially when you look at most of the receivers, I don't see anyone that is clearly wide receiver 1. Like I don't see a guy who's going to be that big threat. I'm hoping maybe that it's Hightower. That cut from DC that we picked up. Nolan had said that he was surprised that, to see him available. So glad that we got him, but I thought that we were going to maybe have like a guy we could see a true number 1 with, at least with Lenore, but then he was cut in the first round of cuts. And yeah, like the 6 would be fine if I thought we had a couple of guys that were really going to be dominant in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that I'm just being pessimistic, but yeah, I agree. I think without any guys that can really take the top off and be the deep threat and number 1 receiver.
My optimism.
I think Marcel Belfay, the new OC, I think he's putting a lot of faith in Jordan Sewell. And that's a guy that we've seen him do some really good stuff. Like that 2022 championship with the Stars, man. I mean, we were there on the field for that one. And he had a couple touchdowns. He had, I think, over 100 yards receiving. He was making plays against a really solid Stallions defense. Last year, he got hurt. He had broken ribs, I think, in week 4 or week 5. He was out for the rest of the year. I think, let's see. If he's healthy, I mean, the fact that he's made it this far, the fact that he's poised to be a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 tells us that he's definitely healthy. He definitely looks good in camp, at least according to his coaches. But it'll be interesting with this talent, with the amount of talent we see defensively on these teams. I don't know. I think Sewell and Devin Gray are the 2 guys that really are going to make or break this offense. And it comes down to Marcel coming over from the Stars.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to shortchange Sims either. I don't think that he got quite the chance that he really needed to last year. But, of course, we can't forget about Quinn. I think Quinn and Ross being kind of more of your slot guys, too. Maybe we'll be having to do more of a dink and dunk, which, honestly, if it keeps our offense on the field, getting first downs and keep our defense fresh, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't need big plays. I'm not all about, I just watched Michigan win a national championship by like just running it. Like you're not going to break off 40-yard runs every single down. So like dink and dunk is slowly methodically moving down the field. If that's the way that our offense is going to operate, then, I mean, by all means, I'm perfectly content with that. But yeah, like it'll be interesting if they ever do find themselves behind, what kind of firepower we'll actually see from the offense, though.
And speaking of Lance and Lenore, quick, that's a cut from a couple weeks ago that we all thought was pretty surprising. Apparently, he was dealing with some injuries in camp, so that probably played a part. And he's the guy that I think if he does get healthy, maybe gets brought back.
Yeah, keep an eye on him because that made some big discussion on the Panthers circles about him returning. So that's a shame to see him not return. So big one piece. I'm with you. Final thought on that. Sewell, to me, this is his comeback season because I thought the same thing. As soon as Jake, and especially you, James, bringing it up, like his 2023 was not what I think people expected, and this guy definitely can produce at his back half 2022 levels again. So if he's healthy and is kicking things off right away with whoever's under center, still kind of playing that out, we'll see. One final thing for the Panthers. We actually have clips. Hey, we're continuing that trend as well. James, thank you for grabbing these, by the way. As we do have a Mike Nolan clip from this week. If you'd like to tee that up, James.
Yeah, it's just a basic clip, and it actually kind of talks about Marcel Belfay a little bit, their new OC, and just Nolan's thoughts on this group heading into the season.
Cool. Let's tee it up right now.
Well, I hope they find it to be a very exciting style of both offense and defense. Starting with the offense, you may all remember, or if you don't, I'm sure the fans that watched the games last year, the Stars offensive coordinator is now our offensive coordinator. And Marcel Belfay is his name. Anyway, the Stars the last 2 years in USFL were if they weren't number 1, they were number 2 in offense. So I think we're going to have an explosive offense. I'm really excited about the way we utilize our players. We got a well-rounded attack of personnel groupings and things like that. So they can expect to. I think they can expect to see a good offense in that respect. I think our quarterbacks, who have competed extremely well, extremely hard throughout training camp, are going to do a really good job for us. So I'm excited about that position. Half of our squad is new from a year ago. And I think it's kind of what's going on in the league. We took that 16 teams and we combined with the XFL, took it down to 8. I think every team has found themselves in a situation where about half their teams are brand new players. And I think for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. I thought we let a lot of good players go these last 3 weeks, or 2 weeks rather, that were with us a year ago, that were good football players. It was tough to let them go, not only because of the relationships we had with them, but also because they were good players. So I know the quality of football that is definitely throughout the league has taken a step in the right direction for the reasons I just said.
Right off the bat with that tough call cuts, because absolutely everyone else has been saying and repeating the same thing. Great players if you have 16 teams, but continuing that common thread, it's going to be a hard case to cut guys that are good. It's just you have to do razor thin margins on the talent. That's a really hard thing to do for coaches and personnel.
So I know this is off topic, but I think I figured out the problem. I think I figured out Coach Nolan's problem. And this really stems to, I think, the first question I asked him at the press conference after, I can't remember who won, but it was after the Gamblers Panthers game last year.
Oh, funny.
And it goes down to, hey, I don't know if I asked him if he keeps his winning streak up, something about if he gets winning, are we going to see that 3-piece suit on the sideline? And, unfortunately, he said no. Now, I'll tell you this. You bring out that 3-piece suit, and I'm telling you, those W's are going to start counting.
At the town hall, he said he's not planning on it this year. So,
two in a row. I mean,
first year bubble there.
Just keep pressuring. That's all it is.
It was an homage of his dad, in honor of his dad, and that. So, but he's retired the 3-piece suit. But certainly was something like James said. It was asked at the town hall. If no one else asked it, I actually was going to, but someone beat me to it. So, because I want to see that 3-piece suit. I think that would give some additional identity to the Panthers and kind of have that. But no, he's definitely going for the more low key, old coach that has been around the block a few times. So his disappointing to see that.
His NFL suit days are long behind us, and I don't know. We'll keep the idea present as long as he's in the UFL. But
would love to see an Under Armour 3-piece suit because, with the whole deal with the Reebok, they had to make a suit for Nolan back when he was coaching the Niners. Would love to see a 3-piece suit by Under Armour.
You can put a Project Rock lapel.
You beat me. You beat me to it. Yes.
Cufflinks will be the Panthers logo. Or the alternative M. You got options, people.
See,
it's gonna happen.
I know there's someone listening. Make it happen. Just present him the suit. That's all you need to. If you sew it, he will wear it. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with, if you build it, they will come analogy here. But anyway,
that's probably as close as you're gonna get. I think.
Very interesting.
We move on. Memphis is next on our docket, and we'll kind of go and shotgun through these again. Every roster has some pretty crazy cuts. And we have actually a clip on one of those cuts, by the way, so stay tuned momentarily for that. But here's the 8 players that Memphis let go in the final round of cuts. Dominic Daphne, tight end, Indiana State. DJ Daniel, he has been released as well, and we have a bit on that one, so stay tuned. Rashard Davis as well, receiver, Jamestown, was definitely a contributor last year, and one of the more recognizable names in the UFL scene. Chance Lytle, guard from Duke. Ryan McDaniel, another recognizable Memphis Showboat from last season, not on the roster. Shaheed Salmon, linebacker Sanford. Ty Smith, cornerback Townsend. And Cam Sutton from Fresno State, tight end as well, all let go. And James, I've teed this up twice in a teaser, but DJ Daniel definitely was not forgotten in the cut rounds, as Flip had put it in a clip we'll show you momentarily.
Yeah, I think let's just roll the clip and then we can get into the discussion.
That one was very difficult. That one took a lot of time, and we weighed a lot of options and did a lot of strengths and weaknesses of the young men in that position room that we were deciding upon. I know this is what I know. And I'm going to keep all conversations I had with players this morning between us. But DJ knows how I feel about him. it was this close. If we have a shoestring broken in that room, I told DJ just to be ready. So that one was a hard one. They are all hard, but that one was hard.
I think he kind of nails it. That one was hard. And, for that room where you have so much talent defensively, you got guys like Kyrie Woods returning. He was so good last year, the top PFF graded defensive back in the league. You've got Christian McFarland coming over from the Stallions. Mm-hmm. Jerry Elder's in that group. Nehemiah Shelton's back. Delrick Abrams is back. I still don't understand how there wasn't room for DJ Daniel. I mean, he was all USFL last year. The Generals, that defense really relied on what he was able to do in that secondary. So I would expect DJ, if Memphis doesn't bring him back, someone else is going to come calling. Because we've seen it time and time again in these leagues where teams lock in their rosters. They think they have their guys. And then a week or two into the year, they're like, wait a minute. This position group is not playing well. We're making some changes. We got to do it now. Because this is a 10-week season. There's no time to waste. So I could definitely see DJ coming back. Another surprising cut was Ryan McDaniel. I mean, yes. That's a guy, Zach, you have some thoughts on that. He had the play of the year last year, that insane catch in week 3 against Houston. Sorry to bring that up to your mind, ref, although you did win that game, so I'm sure you have some good memories from that one as well. But, yeah, Rashard Davis, I'm sad to see him go because his season last year was cut short with a torn ACL, I think it was. He's a guy that he had a great year at Tampa Bay 2022. Shaheed Salmon, he's another guy he's just a spring football vet. He's very, very good across the board. Again, look, it's hard to come up with new verbiage about these cuts because almost every single one's a surprise.
Right. It sucks. I don't mean to. I'm with you. I'm at a loss in trying to make it because some people are like, oh, great, you're desensitizing the cuts. It's well, I don't know what else to add because we've talked so long about now. I'm you can have clearly 16 teams of players can exist and you can have a good time with it. So it's just that stinks because we tie it to the years we've watched these guys either play in leagues or last 2 seasons. We watch these guys play in leagues, and that's what happens here. What I will say on these cuts for Memphis, and to comment on Memphis as a whole, maybe I'm wrong, but I know DeFilippo took over. We know we talk and we've been analyzing how much of this old Todd Haley roster is going to stick around. And I'll be frank, we talk about players from teams that have existed and they're coming back. Memphis feels like the squad that has had the most turnover of people with new faces going either new places or not going to be around anymore. Because this is, there's some familiar names, but the receiver section alone, Derek Dillon, Rashard Davis, and McDaniel all being basically, not showing the door for new talents involved, or the defense in particular getting a big revamp. This one surprised me because I thought Memphis was close-ish enough anyway. They just need 1 or 2 pieces, and each coach has a different vision. This feels like a very different vision, very much so. And that final round solidified that is what's going on right here.
Well, and I'll even say too, real quick, sorry, James, is I was kind of going to go at it from a similar angle of, of all the teams that have made all the cuts as we've had all these conversations, Memphis has been the one where you look at the list and you're like, wow, that guy didn't make it. And every time there's a good handful of those guys. So either there's one of 2 situations. Either Memphis is going to be that scary this year that they're super confident in the team that they're building, or they're making some choices that might bite them in the butt. We'll see. That's the beauty of spring football. I still have Memphis up high. But, 2 weeks is all it takes for me to change my mind. And really, with a 10-week season, it doesn't take much longer than that to really screw up the whole season and your opportunity to a postseason, depending on how these other teams are going to deliver. And quite honestly, as we're looking at all the other rosters, it seems like the margin for error is slimmer than ever when we look at what is touted as the premier spring league. So, sorry, James. I knew if I didn't get in with that, I'd forget it, and I wouldn't have anyway, sign you up.
Great point. And I think to really my point, what bounces off of what you just said, the 2 rosters that really changed, that every roster changed a lot. But the 2 rosters that had the most turnover, in my opinion, was 1, Memphis. Obviously John DeFilippo was in there. And then 2, which we'll get to a little bit later, San Antonio, because now they've got a new head coach in Wade Phillips. And in both scenarios, in Memphis, you had DeFilippo bringing in a lot of his guys from the Breakers, And in San Antonio's case, you have Wade Phillips bringing in a lot of his Roughnecks players. So I think those two teams are going to be, it's either A, going to be a fantastic thing, or B, it's going to end up biting them. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, one more note about Memphis. Really bad weekend for anybody named Cam Sutton.
Seriously. Oh, that is, oh my gosh. That poor dude. That poor dude.
His mentions were blowing up. The poor guy, because the Cam Sutton that Jake is familiar with from Detroit doesn't have Twitter, and everybody found our guy Cam Sutton, the Vipers Showboats tight end. Man, I feel for that guy. You have that happen, and then you get cut in the same week.
Cam,
I can only imagine.
We feel for you, Cam. We are look, keep doing you. Just ride the storm out. Hopefully, things in Detroit for the other Cam Sutton that is unfortunately having your name get dragged through the mud gets sorted out to where you can get back to your normalcy and you can focus on football and not social media people saying that you're doing things you are not actually doing. It's the best way I can put it.
No, the internet. Oh, the internet. We have another clip though for this rowdy Showboats team though, don't we?
Yeah, Carnell Lake.
Let me find this guy real quick. Let's start. Is there anything we need to know about this clip before I start playing it?
Yeah, he calls you out and says Houston sucks. No.
Oh man, that's a lie. Oh,
got him.
No. No. Let's see up the clip. Now it's just about the defense.
It's been interesting. We've had there's been just in total a lot of depth at a lot of the positions. The safety spot with Elder and McFarland at safety. We've got a young player, Lamont McFadder. It's been really interesting to see that dynamic outside linebacker core. We've got Greg, we've got Jeff, we've got Jordan. Any of those guys could start for us on defense right now. And that's just to name a few. Inside linebackers, there's great competition there with Shaheed and Vontae Diggs, with Anthony Butler and TJ Neal. So we've got depth at pretty much every position. And then up front, the defensive line really looks strong. And we run a 3-4, as you guys know, and we've got some pretty good nose guards to kind of set the defense. So I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys can accomplish here in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully it'll all come together just like we're planning on it within the next, by the time the roster is finally set next week.
Is he wearing a Brahmas sweater? Was he wearing? I just have to know that. Was that the Project Rock logo? See, this is how it gets confusing to me.
It had to have been the Project Rock logo.
I think it was.
I don't know, because I saw one of our newsroom's own, Cullen Watkins, run into a Brahmas player where he had the blood, sweat, and I think it said Brahmas on the bottom with the Brahmas logo. And I just saw the blood and sweat in that rock.
They have it on every
Oh my
team.
goodness. My goodness. Anyway, ignore me. Well, we are moving on to the best team in the league. That's some good news. The Houston
Here we go.
Roughnecks.
And yes, you're teeing that one right up. You have that right to go. It is Houston. And again, as James, I think, put it the best, we can keep saying shock, and trust me, we're not trying to desensitize everyone, but big names keep getting dropped, and you got to bring it up, and one of the specific names, actually, extra story, he's calling it, final for a career for certain reasons, which is a shame. But we'll go through the list of 8. Manny Bunch, safety for Tulsa. We'll discuss more in a minute. He's been released. Isaiah Chambers, defensive end from McNeese State. Yadeen Ellie from Georgia Tech, middle linebacker, has been released. Jeffrey Johnson, defensive tackle from Lane. Jared Joseph, tackle from Nichols State. Robert Myers from Tennessee State, offensive lineman himself. Rado Rahman, tight end, Tennessee State. And Marcus Tatum, tackle from Central Florida, released as well. And as I mentioned, and I'll let the ref lead in. This is your team, so, I'll let you go here. Manny Bunch is the biggest name, and pretty much same day, hanging up the helmet. It's final time he played was last year, and final time in camp.
It's a shame. I know we touched on this a little bit on the UFL this podcast this past Friday, which is another reason everybody needs to be subscribed. Click the bell, it builds morale, let you know, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. But Manny Bunch, man, that is going to be the one that stings to see leave the team. We have, I mean, there was a few roster changes that tease it up and kind of gets us ready for that replacement. But somebody like Manny Bunch is going to be hard to replace on the field. Luckily, luck is in our favor. We're not the gamblers anymore, but there's a history of gamblers on our side. And so, we've saw the gamblers' luck in the past. Just wait till you see the Roughnecks' luck in the future. If anything, it's opening the door for the next young star to make a name for himself. Do I want to see him go? Hell no. I wanted this guy on my team this year. But you know what? We've seen already a couple surprising retirements throughout the season. You could argue that, his name escapes me. People are going to be mad about that. But there's been a few retirements that maybe didn't shock people as much, but at the end of the day, I'll draw back to what I said at the beginning when we started breaking down these teams. There's a few coaches that I have confidence in that is going to build the best team possible. And that goes when things aren't just purely a technical decision. It goes when people are, deciding to step away from the game. And so you just have to make the best out of a bad situation. And Coach CJ Johnson is that guy. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be, I'm telling you, he is going to be the coach that surprises everybody this year. He's going to be the coach of the year, coach of the decade, coach of the millennium, and coach of the first UFL championship team. Book it.
Is he going to take over the responsibilities to letting, instead of James letting players know that they got cut? Or is that still going to be James's responsibility?
Well, you know what? If he had to, he would go out there and throw the football. He would go out there and block a tackle. He'll go out there and kick a field goal. You know what? My coach. I'm not going to get in the ins and the outs of the paperwork. I'm sure there's a chain of command. You want to put it on good. CJ's iPad will tell you face to face. Yeah, no spin zone. No. There's no spin in this conversation. I'm just saying some things aren't as simple as they seem. Sometimes
I think you got to take off those stripes and put on a suit and tie because you sound like a politician right now.
Maybe Ref 2024. It's not too late.
All in.
Yeah, all in. Dude, just wait. Anyway, we're running late in the show. I'm not going to go on a tangent about running for politics.
What I will bring on with the roster, and just kind of sway this back in, with Manny Bunch being out again, it's a shame. I will say though, this has been talked about in the normalcy with Houston. I do love the defensive construction because even with Manny not there, I mean, Javon Hicks and Donald Rutledge are still great safety options. And not to mention, besides Markel Roby, Jamari Brown, they picked up a 2024 draft-eligible safety there too. So it's not like that position wasn't deep. It's just that, we keep talking about all USFL, all XFL guys that, whether it's certain circumstances or just tight roster cuts, they just can't make it. And that's just what happens here. But, James, anything further to kick things off on that discussion? Because
a couple of the surprises here. Isaiah Chambers is a guy that got released twice, and that's just, as someone who knows him personally, I feel for him. He's such a great guy on and off the field, and he's done a lot of great work with that team. He led the USFL in tackles for loss last year, so that's a guy that I really think could get picked up again. A couple of these releases, some of them were new additions, so it's not too surprising to see them go just because, either they didn't build chemistry or they just were new to the system. Ruddle Rahman is a guy that he only played a couple games last year, so they already have a lot of quality tight ends with Woody Brandon, Braden Bowman, to name a couple of those guys. Markel Roby, I know you commented on him. Mm-hmm. I just want to throw in there, Curtis Johnson had mentioned in a media call the other day, he's looked really, really good in camp. I think Roby is going to be one of the guys that just really surprises across the board. And I think he could potentially even be a starter for them at some point. So I know it's seeing Manny Bunch go really sucks because that's a guy that he did so much good for them. And it's a real shame, too, because he was hurt and missed their last game. And you wonder if he was out there, things could have gone differently against the Breakers. I mean, that was such a close game down to the wire. Yeah. But across the board, I like Houston's roster, and I think this could maybe lead into our next segment on Houston, which they did name a starter. Jarrett Garantano is going to be the starting quarterback there. He beat out Reed Sinnett and Nolan Henderson. Kind of an interesting move. A lot of people have mixed opinions about this guy. I think Jarrett's pretty talented. He's shown what he can do in college. He's been in NFL camps. He's had moments where he has not made good decisions. I mean, it's just straight up. You can't ignore that. You look his name up on YouTube. There's a couple of videos that come right up of like his bad decision making. So will he be able to develop? And I think this is why the UFL exists. I think its purpose is to help these guys grow. And the guys like Jarrett Garantano, they're diamonds in the rough, and they need to develop. So if he doesn't go out there and have a couple of good games, I'm sure he'll get benched. But I think it's good that he's getting an opportunity to prove himself. And we'll see. I mean, he's a dual threat guy. So in these leagues, you need that.
We got a stacked quarterback room. I know people like to scoff at it. People like to, this name's not big, this name's not bad. But I'll tell you, I was having flashbacks in a good way. We talked about it on the UFL podcast, and I'll tell you this. The last time that we had a quarterback that came from an NFL practice squad into the spring league was a little guy named PJ Walker when we went 5-0. I'm getting signed up on that. And then, like you said, James, if things aren't working out, let's say we win the games, but we don't win them by the 20, 30 points that we want to. You bring in a little badass named Nolan Henderson and Bob's your uncle. We're just we're up 50, 60, 70 points. Things aren't working your way. Reed Sinnett, sign you up. Hey, you know what? You need an outer space man in there? Get him in there. CJ Johnson, put him in. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, the 12-0, the O partially stands for the number of points that our opponents are going to put on us, and that Roughnecks defense, rough them up, all in, 12-0.
Speaking of Curtis Johnson, I think we have a clip.
Let's pull up my man, CJ.
We named Jarrett Guantano. He's going to be our starter. Reed Sinnett, Nolan Henderson will be backing him up. I think it was a great competition all camp long. We thought, man, it was one day it was Nolan, one day it was Jarrett, one day it was Reed. But in the end, I think the body of work that Jarrett put forth, I think he deserves to start. And whoever's the backup, we're going to play him too. We're going to play both of them. You'll see them in the first game, second quarter, it'll be third series, something like that. But man, I thought Jarrett played extremely, extremely well. And the running back is shaping up good. Mark Thompson had a little bit of a hiccup. He got a little bit of a knee sprain, and we'll see where he is. But other than that, man, we got good running backs. Mark's done a good job. Taiwan, he's got one guy that, man, Evans, he's a guy that I'm truly, truly impressed with. TJ Pleasure's always been good. And man, we found Kirk Merritt, and he may be, the people from New Orleans and the people from Miami Dolphins told me he'll be a special third down back. He's doing really, really well.
All right, Zach, no.
Why did you say that? He confirmed the thing I didn't want to hear. Why are you saying you're going to put someone in mid-game?
Because think of it like baseball. Think of it like baseball. Your arm is going to get tired after throwing 36 points in the first half. You're going to have to bring in the other quarterback to get his arm ready for next week. This is the true reality of how scary the Roughnecks are going to be on our path to 12-0.
Panthers aren't going to need any help to make the playoffs, but having Houston go with a dual quarterback system, that's just going to give us
and they're probably missing Mark Thompson.
Well, okay, let's talk about Mark Thompson. He is the ringer. He's not injured. We're playing injured. We're going to win the first game. We're going to win the second game. He's going to come in, and everyone's going to think we got the Roughnecks figured out. That was our problem last year. Started 4-0. But then people figured out the Roughnecks. People figured out how to get around them. But no. You bring Mark Thompson in a couple games through the season, which I mind you, he did last season, and which I remind everybody outscored everyone. Am I scared?
And still missed the playoffs.
Well, that was last year. That was the Gamblers. This is the Roughnecks.
Wow. What's the difference?
Yeah, and the Roughnecks did. How well did they do?
You all wait. And we're going to see it this weekend.
I'm going to wait to get infuriated on Sunday this week, seeing Curtis Johnson do the one thing I despise any coach doing.
And win.
If I get why it is developed. What are you doing? I spent a whole year on this platform talking about Mike Riley doing this with QBs. Do not do this beyond week 1. James has brought up that he did it last year and it was dumb at times that he did it. I don't know why this is a normal thing.
And it lost them the game. They missed the playoffs because
I don't know if it
Montel
lost us
Lazard
the
threw
game.
a pick on a perfect
Why
drive
is this
from
a normal
Kenji Barr.
thing? Why is that continuing to be a normal thing? Even if you could talk about the competition in camp, pick one, just go. Okay.
I'm gonna send CJ a note and say, can you use 3? Can you throw 3 quarterbacks in a game, please?
Yeah, you know what? A perfect way to get out of this, because at least this is a little more Arlington. At least they know who their QB is. They don't have to talk about doing a second or third series. And I think this is a great go right in. Luis Perez starting things off. That got reconfirmed, by the way. So no worries about having to see Reed Sinnett or Nolan Henderson thrown out mid-game as we go into that. But Arlington, going into this, here's your 8 that are dropped out for the final round of cuts. And repeating again, some names you'll see familiar that, to me, surprising if there were more teams. But going on, Cy Barnett, receiver, Davenport. Devin Darrington, running back, Virginia. That was one that stuck out a lot for cuts. Marquise Lucas, guard, West Virginia. Jared Maiden, cornerback, Alabama. Darius Morgan, defensive lineman, Kansas. Roderick Perry, defensive tackle, Illinois. Christian Sam, inside linebacker, Arizona State. And he was already going through a bit of issues, it sounded like, with his status on roster before this cut. And then Noah Taylor, defensive end, North Carolina. Now, I will say me and Stefan did give a few takes on a few of these in particular. Arlington was one of them when we first talked about the cuts. So I'll lead in here. Jake, give you a kick to start things off. What do you think about these cuts for the Renegades or the XFL champs from last year?
To be honest, I do not care about the Renegades. All
right.
Not in the slightest.
Neither does anyone in Texas. I'm sorry.
I mean, all I know is their former defensive tackle says they're trash. I'm, going to go ahead and believe it. I'm a little surprised about Christian Sam getting cut. Outside of that, don't care.
I will say this real quick. Sorry, go on.
Excuse me. Luke's not here, so I got to do it to somebody. I'd say the most surprising one's Devin Darrington. He had a great year with Orlando in 2023. He was one of their first picks in the dispersal draft and on the XFL side back in January 5th. So looking at some of these names, some of them don't really surprise me because they were either camp additions kind of midway along the way, or a few of these names just felt like guys that were off-season additions that were just there for depth. Christian Sam, like Jake mentioned, I called him cheese on air. Look at that.
Very nice.
Like Christian Sam, he was the first modern USFL to NFL signing. So he's a guy that obviously has a lot of talent. He had been placed on the suspended list already, so it's not surprising to see him released. Darius Morang is one that's kind of a shame because he had a great campaign with the Maulers in 2022, but he got hurt a few weeks into the year, ended his season, and he hasn't been back on a team since. So I'd like to see him land somewhere. I think he's a guy that has a lot of potential. And Cy Barnett is someone who he runs a really fast 40. I think he runs like a 4.38 40 or something like that. That dude is speedy, and he can punt and kick. So he's like a Swiss Army knife. So I could see somebody picking him up for sure.
Doesn't hurt to find yourself a place where you need to fit in is how I look at that. It's too bad. That's too bad there. Speed as well. I mean, look, I know it's not always about just the raw physical attributes and such, but it's around the 4.36. That's no slouch of a stat to have. That can be managed. You can find ways to use speed on a roster like that in particular. I think the most interesting one to me was just the whole Christian Sam saga because, it felt like once the suspended list came up, it was kind of like the writing might have been on the wall. And then this was essentially reconfirming that. And I find that fascinating. Beyond that, like Devin Darrington, obviously they're comfortable with whoever they have, with everyone else they have behind Devion Smith. But, I look at that as, a run game that needs a bit more of a boost than they got last year. So, I am going to be watching that unit very closely, see if they can at least get a better average yard per carry, because it felt like they really were just kind of grinding out a few yards at a time and just kind of hitting a wall to just satisfy a quota, getting rushes a game to kind of keep defenses honest. Didn't really feel like it was an explosive unit last year. So keep an eye on that in particular. Any other thoughts on the Renegades? I know
just final thought.
Doesn't have any.
Just final thought on the Renegades. I know I've been kind of keeping tally as I go through on the teams that I'm confident in, the teams I'm not. The Renegades, it's one of those where I'm 50-50. Generally, if I looked at last year's coaching staff and kind of looked at the things that they're making, other than Luis Perez being starting from the beginning of the season, they're coming in with they're not the Renegades of last year. And quite honestly, when you look at the coaching staff being slimmed down, I think it does them favors. I'm still 50-50 on them. They still have to prove themselves. But I don't think if they're the Renegades of last year, I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs. I'll just say that. But they're starting out with Luis Perez. And as we've seen, Perez is the guy when it comes to spring ball. So,
I hope that Arlington gets the ball first in this opener, because Luis Perez, he threw the first touchdown in the USFL. Then last year he threw the first touchdown in the XFL, and now he has an opportunity. He's the starter. Please, 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 spring football gods, let Arlington get the ball first. Let Luis Perez march down and throw a touchdown. I don't care who throws it to. I think ideally it'd be like Sal Cannella, because that's a guy that's been in all these spring leagues as well. But that would just be one of the coolest storylines, I think, of all time.
Yeah.
Will a pick six still count?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take it. You know what? Sign it up.
Touchdown or pick six, Louise. Either one.
Then I have another reason all of us do to go to Canton again for the Hall of Fame. Because then you can I almost wanted to expect a small little plaque that's a fun fact sticker. It says, fun fact, Luis Perez scored 3 straight openers.
New league touchdowns.
No QB's done this.
Who scored the first touchdown in the spring league? God, if that was Luis Perez, wouldn't that be the stat? I don't think it was, but
I don't think the Jousters were the opening game in 2021, but I could be wrong.
We'll have to get some fact checking going on there. Man, we got 2 Texas teams actually 3 Texas teams back to back to back. The good news is we started with the best one. We went to the second worst one, and now here we are with the Brahmas. Oh boy, the Brahmas. I feel bad. The only thing they got going for them is they actually have the chance to turn things around with Wade Phillips and company. I mean, really, AJ Smith. I'll be honest, of all the things that the Roughnecks lost in the offseason, AJ Smith, man. Oh, I'm sad about that. Anyway, let's talk about the roster here, Zach. I'll kick it over to you.
Are we talking about a decision that AJ Smith and company made, this today? And we'll get to talk about how that's gotten all finalized. Here are the 6 cuts that the Brahmas have made on their roster. And apologies for the name pronunciation right off the bat. This is one. Kalichi and Aniela Becci, I'm sorry, and I will get that one clarified for the end of the show. Terrence Lang, defensive end. Becci, by the way, was an inside linebacker. Mark Milton, cornerback for Baylor. Calvin Turner, receiver for Hawaii. Jordan Vasey from California as receiver, and Jared Williams, tackle from Miami, Florida, are the 6 cuts. Brahmas were already a little bit lighter and kind of setting up themselves for things in advance, so not as many as other teams on the cut list as well. Already, and plus, not to mention, they were already making a few moves in the background prior. James, thoughts on the Brahmas?
Yeah, sorry. To point out they had 2 guys go on IR, which for whatever reason was not announced by UFL PR, but it was in the press release for San Antonio. So offensive lineman John Yarborough, he went on IR, and then defensive back went on IR as well. So those are the 2 extra guys that weren't listed there. They're technically still with the team. They're just on injured reserve. So, with the Brahmas, Kalichi Anyelbechi, I think is how you pronounce his name. That's a guy who has such a good career at Incarnate Word. I really thought that he would make this roster. He's just a guy that he's the exact type of prospect you want in a league like this, where he'd gone to an NFL camp. He didn't make the roster, but then, he's so talented. He's done so well in college. I think it's a miss to let him go. I'll be honest. But looking at their linebacker room, they have so much talent there. You got Devontae Beckett, you got Jordan Williams coming back, you've got so many big names. But yeah, Kalichi, he's a guy I really thought would have made this roster. The one that I really hate to see is Calvin Turner. Only because last week, speaking with people in San Antonio, with Cody Latimer, Alize Mack, speaking with Wade Phillips, they were all talking about how the guy standing out to them in training camp was Calvin Turner. And this is a guy that in college, he played wide receiver, he played quarterback, he was a returner, he played running back. He's played like almost every single position. And then he was with the Brahmas last year, and he got hurt, and he didn't get to play. He was on their injured reserve or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really unfortunate to see him go because he's similar to Cy Barnett. He's like a Swiss Army knife. And just hearing, it was so shocking to see him get cut just because all the conversations I had that week with people in San Antonio, he was the guy. He was making plays all camp long. So
right,
that was unfortunate.
Yeah, it's amazing how cuts work sometimes because you think, and you hear, and even in the NFL, you hear about this stuff. You'll have a guy has a really good camp or, does it that way. But the thing is, it always comes down to the needs or what's already available too. It's the thinnest of margins. It's a consistent thread. Good camp can be awesome for your prospects, but sometimes it is dictated on who's on roster and who already kind of, not saying everyone's always locked in, but like some people do get kind of locked in right out of the bat, and you kind of have to fight for that third spot to then keep going, So it's a shame. That feels like an example right up that storyline is that you have someone who, they put in the work. Sometimes it's just the mountain. It may be a little bit too hard to climb, or it's going to have to take some really good gymnastics climbing that mountain to get to where you need to go is all. Part of the Brahmas story this week, and we do have some bits on this, both from, we have bits on the roster, both from Wade Phillips and also Smith. But to touch on this, Chase Garbers starting quarterback now for the Brahmas, and that was solidified. We knew Tom Flacco was going to be third string. That was already well in advance in place. Garbers, to some, comes as a surprise over Dormady. Thoughts on that really quick before we play the clip from AJ Smith and Garbers on this news.
I got one note. Yeah, Houston better.
Of course.
You can roll the clip and then I'll get into my spiel.
All right.
Named the starter at quarterback is going to be Chase Garbers. O-line's playing great. Got a great trio of running backs. And then at receiver, got a strong group of receivers. I mean, I feel like our trio is going to compete with any other trio in the league, and having John Trey, Kirkland, Cody Latimer, and Marquez Stevenson, who's probably the fastest player in the league. And then you have Justin Smith, too, who clocked 23 miles per hour last year with the XO stuff. So pretty good group. We just got to go play a game now. It's looked good at practice, but it's time to see who the gamers are. Both our quarterbacks do really good stuff. And, he's been able to go in and completed a high percentage in practice. We track all those things, throw for a lot of yards, throw touchdowns, and his leadership, everything about him, just, they had a battle. It was a really strong battle, and I really do believe that we could win with either, and he got the edge.
Obviously it's a great honor to represent this team and, San Antonio community as the starting quarterback. And, that was my goal coming into this league is, to obviously be the number one guy and go prove that out on the field week in and week out.
I will jump in with this real quick because I joked Houston better. But, dude, if anyone's going to make the Brahmas the scariest team ever, it's AJ Smith. So I do have confidence in whatever changes he's making. I will say, it is funny to see the community surprised. But I'll be honest, I don't think I was ever sold on Dormady. I think everybody else was sold on him. So we'll have to see their action on the field. But sorry, James, I wanted to jump in with that because I left it.
No, you're good. And I agree with you. I think I talked about this on a show a week or two ago about Dormady, and not the fact that he's not talented, but people forget that, I think everyone looks at that one game where he had 6 touchdowns, and that was an amazing performance. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he did some great things in Orlando. That was just a dumpster fire in an organization. So I don't want to put the blame on him. But that Week 8 game against Arlington, where it was do or die, he turns the ball over 5 times and loses them the game. So there's some good, there's some bad. I think Dormady has a heck of an arm. He's a really good quarterback that would absolutely thrive in A.J. Smith's system, no doubt. But Chase Garbers is exactly the type of prospect that I think the UFL wants to pursue and should continue pursuing, because he's fresh off of about a year and a half with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's only 24 years old. He's a young guy who had a great career at California during his final season, and he's dual threat. This guy can run, and that's what Wade Phillips has talked about. That's what A.J. Smith just talked about. He really brings a lot to the table for San Antonio's offense, and you already know where A.J. Smith last.
Oh, we lost James.
Quarterback who's not really all that mobile. And then you had Cole McDonald, who would come in for certain packages so you can.
Oh, we lost him again. Well, hopefully the weather or whatever's happening in Michigan will let up. Maybe what we do, Zach, I don't know, you tell me. Maybe we roll into the Wade Phillips clip real quick.
Right.
Oh. Sorry, you cut out for a little bit, so I just rolled with it. But we got up to we might have lost you again. Maybe we roll into the Wade Phillips clip, and then hopefully he'll get connected by then.
Let's do that now. We'll let him come back,
Yep.
and we'll continue. We'll kind of continue the Garbers conversation on the other side with it. But here is.
Am I back?
Oh, you are now. Yep.
Of course. I don't know what the heck happened there.
Anyway,
we got you up to the Cole McDonald, but yeah,
here's Wade Phillips on the running back situation A.J. Smith brought up.
He's faster than everybody. So, yeah, once you get him the ball, he gets out in any kind of opening, he's gone. So he's an electric runner because of his great speed. But he also changes direction. I mean, he jump cuts. I mean, he does all the things they need a good running back needs to do. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I'm really pleased with him.
That was on Anthony McFarland. I apologize for the lead in wrong, but yes, very much high on Anthony McFarland is Wade Phillips, and very much so is A.J. Smith. He brought up that very clearly in his own segment when they were leading in on Garbers. But, he does highlight some things that, I mean, you look at this roster. I think a lot of people brought up as well for adding onto this discussion that Cody Latimer and Elise Mack make for a heck of a tight end unit. You hate to be that guy leaning on it. Comes down to a performance of the quarterback position as a whole, but we've seen in any other football situation, guys, and I'll let you lead right into this for the continuous convo. It just sometimes comes down to that one guy behind center that can help elevate some pretty big names, which San Antonio is no slouch in the name department in a few of those categories on the specialist units.
Well, absolutely. And yeah, I guess my point got cut off earlier, so sorry about those technical difficulties. But, for A.J. Smith's offense, right, and the point I was making was last year you had Brandon Silvers, who was the starter, but he's not really mobile. You had Cole McDonald in there who would come in to run those packages, QB options and things like that. Now you have Chase Garbers, and he's a dual threat guy. He can run both of those things. He can run, and he can throw at a high level. So you put him back there, and to get to your point, now you've got Anthony McFarland, who's a guy that's been in the NFL for the last few years. He's a running back, like Wade Phillips said. He's faster than everybody out there. And I think McFarland's a really underrated guy. You look at some of the running backs in this league. Obviously, Abram Smith is out for the year, which is a real shame. But you've got Mark Thompson. We don't know when he'll play with his injury, but he'll be in the league at some point. You've got Wes Hills in Michigan. But McFarland, that's a guy that could be the leading rusher this year, especially with the Abram Smith injury. I could 100% see McFarland with a lot of production. And look at that wide receiver room. Jontre Kirkland, he's back. He's healthy. Yeah. Fresh off a stint with the Saints. Actually, we just spoke with him today in the media availability and talking to A.J. Smith as well. They really felt like he was the best receiver in the XFL last year. Then he got hurt. He was out with a torn pec, and that was that. So just across the board, the Brahmas, they're really slept on right now. And I just saw ESPN, I think ESPN Bet put out odds for the XFL conference, and they had San Antonio dead last at like plus 1,000. The next one up was Arlington at plus 225. The disrespect is seriously insane. And I think the Brahmas fans, they're going to make people pay for that one.
I think it's the defensive end is the problem. That to me is my issue. Offensive weapons are there. If the quarterback's there, sure. I don't trust the Brahmas defensively in terms of the rest of the league is my angle. But I think if you're talking about a team that has the potential to surprise people, that's one that's on that list is the deal.
Well, I guess looking at that defense, Zach, I actually kind of disagree with you on that one just a little bit because looking at some of the guys they have defensive line-wise, you brought in Savion Patton, who was all XFL last year. You have Delonte Scott coming back, who was also all XFL last year. You've got Tim Ward, who I know we brought up earlier. He was from Houston. Now he's in that lineup. You got Devontae Beckett from the Roughnecks, who was phenomenal last year. Jordan Williams led the league in tackles. He was all XFL. He's with them. Joel Yig, I have no idea how to pronounce his last name, but he's a guy that's been in the NFL the last few years. And then the secondary, Darius Phillips, Tease Tabor, Thacarius Keys, Jordan Mosley, Bryce Thompson. These are all guys that either played in the XFL last year and were really good. AJ Hendy's another one, or they're coming from the NFL. So I don't know. I think their secondary and defense as a whole has a lot of potential, but we'll see.
As a Lions fan, I'm holding my breath on Tabor.
It's very fair. Zach, we're going to have to circle back to this one in a week, huh?
Well, I will. I mean, that's fine. I think that's what is great about these conversations about these leagues. We've seen since the 4-ish years now, when you talk 2020, I mean, look, we got opinions with the beginning of the season, and spring football is one of the most volatile, unpredictable subject matters in this whole thing. So I will be fascinated. I think that's my only holdup, really. But, if Garbers comes out and slings it offensively, then you can win a lot of games doing shootouts. That's another way of doing it too. If the defense comes out and is anything like what was the Hines Ward-led roster last year, I won't be saying anything because that team really just needed someone behind center that was a steady hand, a bit more so than a Jack Cohn or Reed Sinnett. So, if this all comes together, I'm all in. I know A.J. Smith's offense, as long as it's firing on some cylinder, and if you can get at least minimum Brandon Silver's first half production out of that offense last year, then hey, you can win games shooting out people. That's the thing. Scores will go up. Fascinating stuff. And I'm going to add in, you guys know we do polls. Vote on who you think should have been the starting QB in San Antonio. I am fascinated to see what everyone thinks because this has been a hotly debated topic. And we got a few more things to go in the show, including St. Louis's roster cuts as the final of the 8. It is
we have DC as well.
And we have DC.
Yep.
So we
2 more left.
And we'll touch in. Actually, I had DC first, so let's do this really in rapid fire. DC Defenders here, and some of these looking pretty close. By the way, Tim Ward, we talked about. That's where he's coming from. He actually got let go by the Defenders and got picked up on waivers by the San Antonio Brahmas. So that's already one accounted for. Also, safety Kentrell Bryce, Louisiana Tech. Matthew Carrick, a guard from Michigan State. Jordan Edwards, middle linebacker from Oklahoma. Jazz Ferguson, receiver, Northwestern State. Greg Long, tackle from Purdue. Taquarius Tisdale, defensive end from Mississippi. And Zaquandre Wright, who was just recently picked up and is another one of those twice cut guys during this training camp. Running back from South Carolina, was with Birmingham up until previous. Leading things off, White was one. I think that was kind of like we talked earlier about guys coming in really quick in camp at the end. Maybe he gets some juice. If not, we stick with the guys we got, and to kind of test the waters here a bit. Otherwise, looking at this roster, I think when we've talked about like the DC Defenders, it's about the offensive production and kind of like, okay, Abrams gone. Now we have to kind of maybe not retool, but now we got to find guys that we can rely on and that will step up to the plate in the absence of, say, veteran and high-quality talents in the receiving room last year in a Lucky Jackson or Chris Blair that are gone. Me and the ref talked about this last week. Or who's going to be taking up the reins as being that de facto running back that will get the production that maybe can come somewhat close, but not exactly at Abrams' level.
Yeah, I mean, the Defenders, I don't know. They came in hot last year, so it's hard to say that they're not going to be a tough team this year. But the Abram Smith loss is going to probably hurt them a little bit more than maybe first expected. But when I go back to the list of coaches that I trust in and think will probably make the best of a worse situation, Reggie Barlow is one of those guys. Is it going to be as easy as a path last year? I don't think so. I think they probably won't go into the offseason 9-1. But I still think that they'll be able to make the offseason. Sure, some of these cuts are shocking. Some, it's a shame how it went down. But that's my take on it. Again, I'm not a Defenders fan, but if I was, I wouldn't be too concerned about the roster. But, it always takes that first 2-3 weeks to see what these teams are really made of. Because realistically, it might not just be them. It might be the competition that they're facing. It's going to be a different year. It'll be a different season. And even with the guys that are coming back, as we've seen with spring football, not all seasons are created equal either. So, as we've said with all of these teams so far, there could be a couple names on this team that we might end up seeing back on this team within short order. We'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for DC, I'll jump in. I think, like Ref said, losing Abram Smith's really tough. And I was going to try to get the clip for this show, but I unfortunately couldn't get my hands on it. But talking with Reggie Barlow last week, he mentioned, they're working with some pieces, but they are very high on Cameron Harris, who is in their backfield. He was with them last year, didn't see a ton of production, but was the guy behind Abram Smith for some of those games. And he's a big-bodied running back who's capable of doing damage. And clearly, they already released Quandre White, so they're pretty set with who they have back there. They also have Puka Williams. They've got some guys that can do some damage. So it'll be interesting to watch how they adjust. I know we talked about it last week. Now a lot of pressures on Jordan Ta'amu to really perform week in and week out. That's going to be a big one. So defensively, they are so stacked as it is. Like, if they're letting guys like Boogie Roberts go, that means that they have a lot of talent there on the defensive side of the football. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. DC for me, and we'll probably get into it at some point with power rankings. I know we didn't release those today. Those will be coming probably tomorrow from PFN side of things.
Mm-hmm.
DC dropped a couple spots for me just from that Abram Smith injury alone, just because so much goes through him. It's not that I'm doubting them. I still have them top half of the league, but I don't know. I'm a little concerned for them now. I think St. Louis is the favorite now in the XFL conference, believe it or not.
Yeah, that was such a massive blow. I'll tell you what though, Jordan, this is the spot I think where if it's to show off his time to shine, it's for, he's going to have a second year in that same system. So, it's always good. One thing we've looked at in the recent years, especially when we talked about USFL last season, was, hey, what are the guys that are going to get more familiar under their belt with people that are similar personnel and scheme? So as long as you are on the same page with receivers and the people you are distributing the wealth to, that'll be great. It does help, I think, to have someone like a Kiki Cootie here and a Chris Rowland. Rowland being a veteran spring baller and Cootie being someone who's he's gotten his reps as well in the NFL scene. And I think you're going to see a lot of targets go those guys' way, given they are veteran and quality route runners. Vincent Smith's another one I've been looking at as well, who's been all over the place, and I think is looking for a spot like this, being an NFL guy coming in. So, and Brandon Smith too. I think those guys are going to be looking out for. But we're going to be going to be under the microscope, especially is going to be Jordan Ta'amu's stint here and what he can do. Unless Cameron Harris comes in, takes his time to shine, and rolls with it. Which, hey, great blocking can open up tons of potential for running backs. Running backs just got to sometimes hit the hole right. That's the two part of this deal. As long as the blocking's good, you hit the hole that you're designated to hit, or you see with good enough vision, you can still make it look good. You can still get yardage and get that, to me, that magical 4 yards of carry out under your belt and do some damage. So watch out, but it does hurt the overall vibe when Smith's not in this lineup.
Hey, real quick, I just want to point out we're one subscriber away from 3,400 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed and you want your team to win, go ahead and subscribe. Click the bell. It'll also throw a little bit of morale in there. And since I'm here saying this, everybody that's watching, go ahead and like the video. That'll it's free. It costs nothing, but it goes a long, long way. Anyway, that's all I wanted to chime in.
Your PSA is over.
Yep.
It's a good thing. Final thoughts on DC. Otherwise, we got big old St. Louis to finish things up. And I know the fans down here that are from the 314 are definitely waiting to have our thoughts on that roster.
We could delay that a little bit longer, can't we?
I knew you would say that too.
I mean, I guess for me, Ferguson and Ward were probably the surprises for DC, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, nothing too drastic.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Well, Tim Ward showed up late to camp, so
some stuff like that, depending on the rosters. I mean, that's not crazy I'm not saying that's like the de facto thing that hurts you, but days away, it's less eval. So also gives it certain perception. I mean, for crying out loud, not to bring this joke up, but we had a guy get let go over pizza versus chicken salad. So, who's to say that showing up to camp did not
Hey,
add on something to
jokes
that?
Jokes on them because he's in the league and the Pittsburgh
know.
Maulers aren't. So
That's it's ironic how that works out, but
well, that's crazy.
At least he doesn't have to deal with Greg Williams as his DC, so he's better off for it.
Watch, Jake. I'm projecting now that someone's going to be on Greg's and his son's podcast by at least mid-season. Be like, it's mandatory.
Yep.
This is part of the defensive regimen. I need you on here. talk some UFL expansion.
Wouldn't that be? Yeah, the music hits.
Anyway.
All
right, guys. Final roster here to bring up and discuss is, of course, your St. Louis Battlehawks. And this will be tying things out for the show today. And honestly, feels like if we're talking upward trajectory, St. Louis, at least going into this week, it's only been up and up since the beginning of camp, one reason or another, but it certainly feels like they are a trending upward team since we last did any power rankings or other items like that. Here are the players that they did release, and Anthony Beck, one of the most vocal coaches in this league, very much was adamant that, hey, this was tough calls again. He has been very vocal on social about that. And so here we go. Kevin Atkins, defensive tackle, Fresno State. Nico Bolden, outside linebacker, Kent State. Darian Chafin, receiver, Incarnate Ward. Emeka Egbule, outside linebacker, Houston. Chris Garrett, defensive end from Concordia. Drew Lewis, inside linebacker, Colorado. Steve Mitchell, receiver, California. And finally, Dallas Warmack, tackle from Oregon. Instant thoughts and reaction, guys.
I mean, overall, I think the Battlehawks are going to be a team to watch out for this year. I'll restate the same thing I said for most of these teams. We all knew that there's going to be some tough cuts coming, but I wouldn't doubt if we see some of these guys jump back on the team depending on how things play out in all of their respective positions. But I think you kind of let in with this, maybe in not the same words, but I'll say it like this. It does feel like the Battlehawks are getting a slight glow up this year. Maybe that's because the championship is in their location and they really, really want 40, 50,000 crazy Battlehawks fans there for that championship and potential playoff game. But I mean, that's the name of the game. They still have to get it done on the field. And so that's what we're less than a week away. And I know there's a couple guys on this show that are hoping they don't get it done week 1.
And I hate that team. It's ingrained since 2020. There's a deep hatred there.
The passion you have towards St. Louis in this way, I applaud.
It rivals my hatred for Sparty, but of course it still doesn't come close to that team down south, to Ohio. So that state and any team that plays in that state will always be worse than the Battlehawks, but or Sword with Wings. But they're right up there with Sparty. But even I will have to admit, they're probably going to be one of the teams to beat, as much as I hate to say it, as much as AJ McCarron is going to cry every single time he doesn't get something going his way. They're definitely going to be a tough one, and I think getting them week 1 is probably going to be beneficial for the Panthers. So interested to see that one, but as much as I hope that they are not good, I do have to agree. I think they probably have a bit of a glow up, like you said.
Yeah, that week 1 game will be interesting for St. Louis and Michigan, where obviously we know AJ McCarron's playing quarterback there. No idea who the starter is yet in Michigan. Mike Nolan today still double downing on that he hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. So
you watch, Zach. Oh, please let it happen. Please get the dual quarterback in Michigan. Oh, no. Mike Nolan. I take it all back. Screw the 3-piece suit. 3 quarterback system. Zach, your biggest fan, wants to see it.
League, bro.
Oh, well, I will make it legal.
They're too similar.
Okay, getting back to the topic at hand. Battlehawks The biggest surprise for me on this list was Kevin Atkins, just given his success with the team last year. He went to the New York Giants after the XFL season, but St. Louis, their biggest weakness was their defense last year, because whenever they played a high-powered offense like DC or Seattle, they really tended to struggle. They lost those games, and it kind of set them apart from where, yes, they were a lot better than the teams in the South, because the teams in the South, outside of Houston, didn't have operational offenses, whereas in the North, DC and Seattle were powerhouses in that field. So Atkins leaving, we see a couple of guys leaving here, Chris Garrett, Drew Lewis. Those are guys that were picked up in the offseason anyway. I really like what the Battlehawks have defensively right now. Picked up a lot of solid talent. They revamped the secondary. I know we talked about it last week. So, yeah, none of these cuts were all that shocking other than Atkins, in my opinion. Now, Darian Chafin is a guy that I really hope gets picked up by somebody, because he's a diamond in the rough who I think really could do well in the spring football scene. Yeah. So hopefully someone picks him up. Look, only 50 spots on a roster, so you can't fit everybody.
Well, talk about a unit that, even with Ja'Cour Pearson being out, that was going to be a hard one to work in for his case as well. I really do want him to get somewhere as well. Well, you know what? I'll tell you one thing. Incarnate Ward, they represent really well out here. Credit. This is spring football. Small schools get a lot of their guys, get the diamonds in the rough types. But Incarnate Ward, a lot of talent's getting representation out for this league. And I hope that they get to keep having chances like that. I'll say, you're absolutely right, James. Chafin, I really want to see Chafin somewhere really bad. And Atkins, yeah, kind of surprised. But then again, we've seen, even with familiarity, Memphis would say it, St. Antonio would say, even familiarity doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a place. It just comes down to circumstance and how things shake out at the end of the day. Okay, before we end the show, sorry, this quote was hilarious. Pardon the cuss word, but just because Jake, hang on, what the heck? I had it here a second ago. Rico, I don't know if we really hate on the St. Louis Battlehawks, my guy.
The hatred's there.
I am putting myself in the exclusion from that discussion. That's what I'm doing.
I love what St. Louis is doing. I know I'm Switzerland, but I technically was a Battlehawks fan in 2020. So
their fan base is great. As far as the size and for the league, but great as far as the content. No. It's good for the league. This definitely. I think they're going to be probably, if maybe this year, they're going to probably be the only fan base, the only team to actually make a profit. I don't think that the other 7 are going to be able to have the pull. Obviously, not as much as St. Louis does, but no, the hatred for me is there. It's not pure loathing, again with Ohio State, but it's right there up with Sparty, maybe right up there with Notre Dame for me.
This is the rivalry part. We gotta we're getting new rivals now. It's the UFL, kicking things off week 1 in Detroit this time. Cross conference rival is how I look at it. So
I'm just gonna be the only one railing. It's nobody else in Michigan will care. No one in St. Louis will care. I'm still gonna be just hitting the sword of wings. It is what it is.
And
they ran me away, or I got tired of them because I started as a St. Louis fan.
Well, that's my thing. I'm Jake and I here. Same deal. I got Battlehawks merch I still wear on the regular.
Well, I ditched them a week before 2020 started, though.
Oh, okay. I see what's going on. Okay. Anyway, we told you we get every roster. We got every roster. Analyzed it. We're still got picks coming. Still got power rankings coming up this week. Gonna be still a busy week leading in. Still got plenty of media sessions and things probably coming up as well that we're gonna keep hearing, and more decisions, of course, on who's gonna be even hitting the field starting behind center for some of these teams or in crucial spots. We know rosters, but we're still gonna be kind of feeling a few of the starting positions out, and that's gonna be talked about all week. So stick with that. But hey, 50-man rosters all set across all 8 teams. It's go time now. These people know they're locked in. Now it's about delivering on your week 1 and beyond commitments to get into the playoffs. And, look for that glorious UFL championship coming on June 16th in St. Louis. Before I jump into points or anything I missed, gents? I don't want don't want to skip through the show because I do want to distribute points. And, well, I'd say it's been a fine day of ATU, if I do say so myself.
I mean, the only thing you may have missed is specifically saying that the Houston Roughnecks are going undefeated 12-0. But
I see what
beyond
you're doing.
that,
Now,
I think you caught everything.
Hey, now you filibustered me once. We're not doing this again. It already docked your points anyway, so I'm gonna put you there. You already lost at least 2 points today off off hijacking the show that way. So
Houston again.
just
Oh man, I didn't know you guys could do that to me.
Yeah. We got access, buddy.
I was waiting for him to notice.
You've been warned.
Oh, that's good.
He's giving us too much power.
Yeah.
Start doing gag buttons like around the horn.
Yeah.
Noted. Anyway, let's give out points as we always do here. James going to throw on 5 for yourself for the show. Plus, as always, got to give you for the clips because, I mean, these are great. This is great stuff coming from me today. So thank you for throwing on.
I got those loaded in like just a few minutes before we had hop on.
Yeah,
sign you up.
Got to give you that 5. Jake, you and I are going to get 4 being on the show, and because we're Panthers fans, man, so got to rally up this week
for the number of wins you're going to have this season.
Oh, you're funny. Well, I'm going to give you. Well, you tied in right to my trap because I'm giving you 2. Not only is it because I'm penalizing you for trying to filibuster my show earlier that I'm hosting this week, not my show specifically, but it's my hosting duties this week you took from me, but you also are going to get less wins than us. I guarantee 2. So have fun with that, with that as your season goes. Or it's also the amount of possessions it will take before I yell at my TV because Curtis will make me mad. The TV up in the press box, not the one that's actually in front of me at the house because we're going to be at the game. And I'm going to watch Curtis do this whole 3 possessions and throw a different quarterback in because it makes clearly any sense in the world.
That's CJ to you. Unless you're his iPad, then it's Curtis.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying.
Well, audience, thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate jumping on the show with you every week as always. Big overtime session this week, but hey, we knocked out a pretty big one getting all the rosters analyzed. I say it's a huge accomplishment and win there for us. By the way, last note, the poll, I know it's a little later than I usually post it, but it's 50-50 split on the San Antonio decision at quarterback. So if we aren't kidding, it's a highly debated topic right now in the spring football scene. We'll see how it plays out. It's a fascinating one in itself. And week 1 will be the right away tell to how the year goes for that. But yeah, fascinating. I love doing polls. That's why I got to throw them up here. Anyway, guys, follow us along at Around the UFL on your favorite social media platform, posting clips now weekly. Appreciate all the love and support with those, by the way, that we've been getting out there. And fan base is growing, so keep on doing that. Keep following us along. Same goes for our other socials, Pro Football Newsroom, PF Newsroom on social. Check out pfnewsroom.com for the latest on all things UFL or spring football as well. As we're putting out plenty of new articles, breaking down our rosters still. And as James, I know I owe you an article for this week, previewing the games that are going to be taking up Saturday and Sunday. So we're going to get tons of stuff out. Tons of stuff coming out. You don't want to miss it.
Who's ready? Who's ready for opening weekend, man?
For real.
I mean,
for real.
I am.
It feels like we've been waiting for this one an extra long time.
I know. And it's going to be the pinnacle of spring football openings too. I mean, we really have the consolidation of the best of the best. So much so that there's still some of the best that didn't even make the cut, right? So I have some high hopes for this weekend. I know at least the Roughnecks aren't going to let me down. I'm going to be there. You'll hear me. CJ, you're going to hear me if I disagree with your choices. Zach,
if Ref
you're going to hear me celebrate.
I might just become a Stallions fan. I've had it. The
Go
best
ahead.
USFL
Ruin
team
the
is
Stallions.
Birmingham right
People
now.
will blame you
Come
for
on.
their wretched record.
Ruin.
I'm even wearing a Birmingham shirt right now, so it's kind of
Switzerland. We already saw this is a trend
I'm
here.
have to show this one on camera too.
Yeah, first we had the screenshot from the phone. That's a Discord exclusive. So if you're not in there, join down below. I saw you previewing the shirt.
What do you mean?
Oh, it was on the show. Okay. Well, and then I saw you previewing the shirt over there.
Yeah, look at this. Jay Sternberger. It's in.
Switzerland. Interesting.
Merch drop. Got to pick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it.
Big week, though. Big week. And spring stock this weekend, which you should see all 4 of these lovely faces. Maybe not at the same time.
Right.
But I know Zach and I got early duty. Jake and James, I'm hoping you still got late duty. And basically, we're going to take you right up until kickoff. And then James and Jake, you'll be headed right down to beautiful Detroit City to go cover that beautiful game. So, make sure you're following online at UFL Newsroom because no joke, like it's not just us 4 here. Like we have a team that is putting in some work to bring the content through for this season. And, even just a view, a like, a subscribe goes a long way. But either way, we're going to be here week in, week out, and I'm looking forward to it. Another flipping season of spring football. Yeah. Believe it or not, this is 6 years in a row that we've had spring football. It might not have been one league at a time, but we had AF, XFL, the spring league.
No, we didn't have 20. Well, I guess
5, right?
The spring
it's
league
5.
is
5, yeah. But anyway, 5 years.
And even I can figure that out.
Yeah, well, get over it.
Well, everybody, that's going to do it for Around the UFL. Catch us next Monday. We're going to be talking. We're basically doing what we're going to be doing for this show. That was the other premise of it. We're going to recap everything that happened during the games. So stay tuned to that. Going to be talking, breaking down everything that you need to know about week 1, how we reacted to week 1, any news that comes out, injuries, you name it. It's going to be on Around the UFL, and we're going to have a damn good time talking in-season football this time. In season. Man, it's great to be knowing that we got more football around the corner. Football never stops, by the way. It just keeps on going. That's all. Until next time, I'm Zach. That's the ref. There's Jake down there. There's James. Catch you next Monday. Have a good one, everybody.
Paul Islaw.